Welcome, welcome, welcome to Fit Chat, Chit Chat. I'm your hostess, Devondria Sanchez, licensed marriage and family therapist, founder, owner, and client of Finding Inner Transformation, where we believe a fit mindset is more than the physical. It is emotional, mental, and spiritual. I'm so thankful for today. I'm thankful to have my guest on. She is brave. She is courageous. And I thank her for her yes when I asked her if she was willing to be on the show today. But really quickly, before I get started, if you're watching this live and you have a question, a comment, or feedback, please put it in the chat so that we can answer it accordingly. And if you're watching this in a recording, please feel free to do the same. So then we will just circle it back around to either myself or Jess so we could answer that question. Without further ado, this is Fit Chat talking about first responders. If you watched our first part, it was about 3 weeks ago now, where we had an opportunity to talk to some male first responders that were former police officers, correction officer, and a firefighter. But I had so many text messages asking about the female perspective. And so I caught a fish, y'all. I got one fish. If I would have had a little more time, I would have been able to hopefully secure some other women. And hopefully this is encouraging and empowering other women who are first responders who would like to share their story. But without further ado, I want to thank Jess for being on today. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. Jess.
Thank you. My name is Jess. I have been in law enforcement for 15 years. Funny enough, I kind of started out as an explorer with my local sheriff's office, and it just took off from there. Worked at the sheriff's office for about 12 years. I've done everything from patrol, weekend nights. I've worked Christmas, Thanksgiving. I've worked out way on a west side of town where I had nobody, or county where I had nobody near me. I was the only person. My nearest backup is about 15 or 20 out. I've also worked way up on the east side of our county, same thing. My nearest backup was 15, 20 out. I've also worked more of a central location of our county where we had more police departments to be able to help us. And I've worked detectives, background investigations. I've also worked as a school officer. Then, funny enough, April of 2020, I ended up getting hired by a local district attorney's office, and I work there as an investigator now. And very different, but I get to still do investigations, which I absolutely love. That was kind of my niche. Everyone talks about law enforcement. You have a niche. Some are great SWAT guys, some are great patrol guys, some are great sergeants. Detectives was my thing, so I wanted to follow that for my career and hopefully retire.
That's beautiful. Y'all, all of that, I know some of you may not understand the lingo. As myself, the girl been working, okay? She has been working, and it looks like she's been working in different entities of her field. First, let me just say thank you for your service. You bring up a great reminder that there are folks who's going to be working. Our law enforcement, our first responders, our EMTs, our firefighters, while we get to celebrate with our families, they will be ensuring that they are available in the event something happens. And so let me not be remiss to say thank you for your service, Jess. And thank all responders too, because what I realized, and I forgot to say it last session, was there is, I think it was October 28th was First Responders Appreciation Day. Y'all listen. Come on, start thanking your first responders, because I'm able to sit my butt here because they're out there pounding the beat and making sure that calls are being met and situations are being handled. So I just want to say that one of the things that kept circling back around, and we know that as we talk about mental health in general, we know that there is a grossly higher impact amongst first responders when it comes to post-traumatic stress, when it comes to the things that they see and the things that they witness, because they are the first ones to either hear or see very tragic and traumatic situations. One of the things that resonated with my guys was that they felt like there wasn't really as much as an opportunity to seek the services, or the stigma is still around when it comes to first responders seeking help. How do you feel that relates to you, Jess? Because I would imagine, and you don't have to share with us here today, but that you've seen and heard some things that most people will never see or hear in their lifetime, because you were the first one to be at a site where something tragic has happened. How do you feel like the stigma resonates still within the field, being a woman in law enforcement as it pertains to mental health? Do you feel like the stigma is still there?
I still feel like the stigma is still there. Being in this line of work for 15 years, I've seen it reduce with the stigma, but especially with your smaller agencies, it is still there. And especially the agency where you have a your the people that have been there longer than you have been in the field for 20, 25 years. So a lot of them, when you do kind of try to put the signal out that you might need some kind of mental health, you might get thrown at the wayside. They may say, "Oh, just go home and have a beer and you'll be fine."
Mhm.
For me, like some of the calls I would get, especially I know a lot of women can probably understand this with children, or even if you don't have children, nieces and nephews, we have that maternal instinct in us. And when you go to a scene where a child is injured, or worse, when I would come home, I don't care if it was 2 in the morning, I would go up and start hugging my kids in bed. It was something I needed, but as time went on, things built. Um, I know your guest from a couple weeks ago, Taylor and Gilbert, I worked with them very closely. We worked in the same units, and we had kind of a horrible pattern that happened to us within a year, of deaths, um, suicide or homicide of people we knew. And that kind of started building a little bit more for me to where I had a hard time getting close to people. I had it because I didn't know what was going to happen to them.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I wanted to talk to them all the time because I thought maybe I can help them. Maybe I was I'm that one person that can stop them from um, committing suicide or doing something stupid. Um, in reality, was I? No, but it still was a feeling. Thankfully, the agency I'm with now, they do have some services, which is nice. And the person I trusted to talk to reach out for help to those services, he was very supportive. Um, and I don't mind sharing that now. I do share it within the office when people ask because I want people to go get the help, and I don't want it to be a stigma anymore. I don't want people to be secretively going to a therapist or peer support and be like, "Hey, I need help." I don't want anyone to know that I need this help. If we don't talk about our experiences with mental health services, then we can't get rid of that stigma. And I think that's also a problem. But kind of what Taylor said, I don't think peer support should be used to, hey, this is all my problems. You throw up on them and then they go get you the counseling services you need. They should know nothing of what's going on because he is right. Anyone can order anyone to talk.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect anybody to lose their job over me. That's not what I'd want. So even though, yes, they're peer support and they're not supposed to be asked these questions, if they're ordered to talk, and like I said, thankfully in my agency, I don't see that as much. But in other smaller agencies that aren't with the program, that could be a problem that can come back to bite them.
Yeah. You mentioned something about just being a mother and naturally being nurturing, wanting to go home and clutch your children no matter what time it was, time of the morning it was. That is something that is wired within us to be nurturers, right? We love estrogen. It just allows us to be a little softer and more affectionate. However, you're in a field that there's not really, it doesn't appear as an outside observer that there's really space for that. It's almost like a conditioning that has to be done in order for you to execute the job, that doesn't allow you space for that nurturing, loving, and softness. Did you notice that, I heard you say you went from explorer, and I think you do that like when you're, younger, under the age of 18, to now. Did you feel like you've been conditioned to be something a little bit different than how you were originally wired?
Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, my mom was the person to notice it more. Obviously, my mom is like my best friend. She's my mom, but I'm an only child. So yeah, top it off, you're only child. Female wants to be a cop. Yay.
Yeah.
Um, so she wasn't thrilled about it. She's gone on ride-alongs with me when I was on patrol. She saw me almost get in a fight once, and she
Oh
was
my goodness.
shocked with, yeah, she was shocked with how I handled myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, um, in that respect, she noticed that I had changed. She noticed my language had changed, how I would talk would change. Um, I wasn't as tough, but we weren't a very. My family's not super affectionate.
Mm.
I've actually had to force myself to be like that. My husband's family is amazing people. Sorry, I have a new kitten and she's under the tree trying to open presents right now.
You're
So my husband's family super. His mom and dad are super affectionate people. So um, to kind of bond with them, I kind of started opening myself up. His mom's family and his dad's family are super affectionate people. So I just make sure I kind of opened myself up more, and purposely make sure I was available that way, which I think helped not just with my relationship with my husband, but then when I had children, it softened me a little bit more. I like to cuddle with them. My 6-year-old still loves to cuddle, which is great. My daughter is 9. She's not too into it, but she will, she knows when I have a bad day. My
Yeah.
son knows when I have a bad day. Um, they know what I need to. Actually, right now, it's amazing. They're home and you don't hear them, um, because they know that this is important to me to get this
Yeah.
information out. So
Good.
they know.
Yeah.
So but
So
it has changed.
yeah, we were had the opportunity to talk a little bit before we went on live today, and I said, I notice even with my female veterans, it's almost like this mindset that has to happen because we know that even in law enforcement, it's still this very male dominant field. So you're talking, even when I think about dispatchers or EMT, it seems a little bit more equaled out. But for veterans, for law enforcement, for correction officers, it is still highly dominant despite women now entering into these spaces. And
Right.
so did you feel, or do you currently still feel like I have to prove myself mentality that needs to happen in order to be successful in this male dominant field?
So when I first started, yes, that feeling was there. I know you guys can't see me on camera, but I'm only 5'2". I'm not very tall, so I've had to learn um, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. I can go now. I'll tell you what. I've gotten into fights with men, obviously in the field, and I've had to back up my 6'3" partner, um, and he knew I had his back. So
Mm.
it was kind of funny how I've heard females say I've had to earn the respect. I heard another female talk about that, and I was shaking my head, going, "Yes, you kind of have to get into that fight, especially like when you're on with field training. If there's a fight that goes on and one of your partners gets in a fight, you better be there to jump in. And this is with any deputy officer. If you don't jump in right away, that shows a lot. But for females, it's an extra pressure, and for me, it was even more so because I'm only 5'2". So I felt like I really needed to prove myself. It didn't take long for me to do that. I don't think. Um, the guys really much liked having me around, especially when we would have specific calls that they weren't comfortable handling. Uh, they would want me to come in and help them, and I had zero problems as long as they had my back and I had theirs. We kind of, most of the guys that I worked with, especially when I first started, we became kind of like siblings. Um, it was like a brother sister relationship. I still, even though we don't work at the same agency, I still talk to them. We still text, we still chat, we still meet up for lunch. But as time has gone on and more females have gotten into the job, especially at my old sheriff's office I worked at, I feel that the stigma's not there as much. It's kind of lightened up. And where I'm at now, it's actually a lot of female investigators, which is nice, which is a change of pace. Um, and especially supervisors, we have a lot of female supervisors. So it's kind of balancing. And I think people are understanding that, yeah, I may not be able to bench press 350 pounds, but I can be utilized in other places and I will have your back. And so
Yeah.
it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And do you feel like, so it sounds like you get this family, adoption that,
Right.
how I run, the culture, because it is a culture. I think we were talking about that kind of in the podcast. It's almost like an identity that, Taylor Gilbert and myself were talking about on the podcast. Is kind of like, what is your why? in things, and why is it so difficult in some of the transitions? And definitely Gilbert had a different thought process than Taylor did around it. Sound like Taylor ate, slept, drank the juice, drank the
Yes, he
Kool-Aid,
did.
right?
Yes, he did.
And when you have that happen and you step out, a lot of things have been conditioned for you to set your identity, and your traits and behaviors and thinking it wasn't just a job anymore. It became who you were. Do you feel like that you've been in 15 years, enough time to kind of like develop some of the traits, some of the language, some of the talk? Do you feel like you have established an identity with the work that you've done?
Um, so it's kind of more with at the beginning because when I first got in this job, I wasn't married. I didn't have children. I think I said to you off the when we were first talking. I, I started a little later in life having kids, so I've got young kids. I'm 40 and I've got really young kids. Most of my friends that are my age have like teenagers right now, and I'm like, oh no, I just started later.
Yeah.
So when I was single, yes, it was very much who I was. And I think that's why I engrossed it so much, and my behavior changed and my language changed. Uh, some of my friendships outside of work fell off, which I regret. And now we're back a little bit more back on track. Um, but I was that person, though, unfortunately, at the beginning that you call me, I'll come into work. Yeah, I work 6 days this week, but I'll work day number 7.
Mm.
Um, because I always felt that one day someone's going to return the favor. Don't ever think that. Don't ever think someone's going to return that favor for you, because that's not true.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes they don't. We know when it was my turn to have kids and my turn to have, um, sometimes those favors were not returned.
Yeah.
Um, and from people that I have helped, and I purposely was like, I'll work Christmas for you so you can have it off with your family. Um,
Mm.
and then when
Yeah.
it was my turn, it didn't. And I think that's where, once I had kids and once I had my husband, it was kind of that, okay, things are going to have to change. Now my identity is different. I try not to make it who I am from work. My identity is more of I, I love I love fitness. I work out funny enough, I worked out this morning before I got on the podcast to get some of the nervous
Yes.
energy out. I love to run. I actually have a coworker. He tries to get me to do all these 5Ks with him, and I feel terrible because I have signed up for none of them. But like I can do them.
Yeah.
And so I've more developed my friendships at work with who I have things I have in common with those people. Or oddly enough, some of the people I work with now, my husband went to high school with.
Mm.
So it's pretty cool that we form these friendships. And that's more, I don't focus on, oh, well, you're a cop, I'm a cop, we should hang out. It's
Yeah.
personality now.
Yeah.
And to be honest, outside of work, I hang out with my kids and my husband and my
Yeah.
mom. That's about
Yeah.
it.
That's beautiful. And so what I'm hearing is kind of like it's expanded, right? It started off one thing, now it's a piece of a thing, and there's greater things that surround it. This
Yeah,
thing allows me to do these other things.
right.
And it's part of something I'm doing versus something that I am. And,
Correct.
we see this a lot of times with my vets. I run a veteran support group here in this county, which is male dominant, although my female vets are showing up and showing out. I love it because they do bring a softness to the, let me just say, sometimes to the group. So maybe this is more of a question for your husband, but do your best to answer it. Is when you think, like when I think about my husband, who is a veteran, retired vet, they are wired to protect, provide security, provide a safety. I'm a therapist, so the type of work that I do is more emotionally and mentally, can be draining if you're not careful and if you don't have any self-care strategies. And we can talk about that in a minute. But I truly am still wired to come and listen, to talk, and have this softness about myself, right? But then when I think of a female police officer, detective, when I think about corrections officers, they do the protecting and the securing and the safety. Where does he come in in that picture for you? Or is it a mutual thing? Now we equally secure, protect, and provide safety. Or are you able to allow that to still happen? And how does that happen in your relationship?
So with him being in law enforcement, he's been a little longer than I have. So I say honestly, I don't know what he would say. He'd probably say I try to take over. I'm very type A. He is not extreme type A. He's got
Yeah.
some, but not extreme, which that's, I think, what helps us. I need his balance, or
Mhm.
there's no way. Um, I've worked with several type, I think I told you earlier, I worked with several type A personality guys at work when I was single. And I'm like, if I married you or if I was to ever live, I would kill you. There's no way we would survive.
Right.
Um, but we kind of have different. So when we go out and about, we're both very head on a swivel, always paying attention. It's gotten to the point where my kids know when I need business, when I need to, you know, we need to get going, we need to get moving. There's something weird going on.
Mhm.
We both kind of play in with that. But our level, it's funny because now my level of protection within the home is like, do we have batteries? Do we have flashlights? Do we have extra food? Do we have things we need if the power goes out? And his is like, is the garage door closed? Are the doors locked? Is the
That's
alarm
beautiful.
off?
Yeah.
It's funny because we both play off each other. So it does work out. And when I'm home, I mean, honestly, with all the stuff I deal with, his is investigations as well, a little different level of investigations. So he's not dealing with some of the heinous stuff that I deal with. I just come home and I'm like, I just want you to be the protector. I just want you to be the guy. I
That's
want you to take that role because I need that sometimes. I need to feel that soft, that good place to land when I get home and that solid rock of, I got this, I'm handling it, no worries. And he does
yeah.
that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I could imagine. I know you didn't mention it at the beginning, but for those who are watching this, whether live or in a recording, so that you got two law enforcement officers, and not everybody has that. And I think there's pros and cons to that. The fact that they were able to find balance. I would. Oh, I can only imagine the vigilance of them both going out. I know, it works for them, and it sounds like they're fine. They have found a balance, and I don't think that always happens when you have two individuals who are alphas, or two individuals who have to go out and accomplish the same thing at the end of the day, no matter how they get there, whether it's a resource officer, school resource officer, or someone working best. At the end of the day, is to put someone else respond before yourself, right? To put someone else in
Right.
front of you. That's why I'm not law enforcement. Okay. Okay. Um, I'm just being honest. And so we know it takes a certain personality. It makes sense when I hear Jess saying, I wasn't raised very affectionate, huggy, squeezy. We loved each other, but we weren't that. And so, I don't know. I have not met one yet. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, because I'm sure that they do, that did not have some type of upbringing that really molded and shaped them to be willing to accept a career like law enforcement, correction officer, first responder. There is a personality type. I talked to Gilbert and Taylor and said, I can only imagine who you were in high school and upbringing, and both kind of had to admit, right, that is them. The fact that she had to be on her own, support herself as an only child, kind of being there, get in there. You learn to seclude, play by yourself, make fun happen. Does not surprise me that she is doing the thing that she's doing today. And I think that we can all kind of take a step back and see maybe some of the order steps in what shaped us to be in the jobs or the careers that we're in. um, I am going to circle back around, because really today was to give a little bit of context to, the field and in the first responders. And, we're doing the community a service by not talking about some of the heinous things that she had to see or hear. I know in the podcast I did with Taylor, he mentioned something that he hadn't shared with anybody. I would imagine there's some things that Jess has seen or heard that, again, you can't unsee or unhear, whether it comes back circling around or not. But until you talk about certain things, I mean, we put it into place. The brain knows how to compartmentalize, and we thank him for that. We thank God for creating our brains that way in our minds. However, if Jess is anything like me, and we'll find out here, I know being a therapist kind of caused me to even with my own kids. Why are you doing that? Looking at that. You know, just paying a little bit more attention than maybe the average person. And I want to know, how does that show up for you? I heard you when you said that the kids know if we have to hurry up and get out, they know that it's because something. And my brother, who was on the last podcast, said if you hear a certain nickname, because that's what they call them in the hall, and he's at one of the biggest juvenile halls in, you know, here in California, that means keep walking as if you don't know me. And so I'm wondering how that has played out for you with your family, if at all.
We've had well, I say off duty, but I was home with my kids. We've had a couple incidences where I actually caught a man following us in a store. Obviously, he didn't know it was a cop. I mean, let's face it. If you were to see me, I'm in yoga pants and a sweatshirt right now, and I look like every other mom in the store with their kids. And it was a Tuesday, so I happened to be off, or a Monday. I think it was a Monday. I was off on Mondays. And I remember he was following us, and my daughter's just chit-chatting away, and I grabbed her hand, and I looked at her, and I said, you need to get in the cart. And usually she would just walk on the side, and my son would be in the front because he was little at the time. And I said, I'm going to put you in the cart. So I grabbed her, and she knew immediately when I grabbed her hand, and she saw that look in my face. She knew that this was serious business. I purposely called my husband and put him on speaker, or I put him on my phone, and I put him on speaker, and I said, I'm telling you where I'm at. This is what I'm going to do. And I said it very loud so the man heard me. I said, there is a man following us right now on Target. And he went, okay. I said, I'm going to the register right now. I'm going to go talk to somebody. He stopped following me. Yeah. I saw this. I got my kids. A guy walked me out from Target. I got everybody in the car. And my first thing is I always unlock my car because my car has an automatic start and automatic lock. I start my car. I'd unlock it, tell the kids, get in. I don't care if he stole my purse. I don't care if he stole my stuff. My kids get in, and I lock the door. Got in the car, and as I was leaving, he was following another woman out. I could see him following another woman and kids. One kid was on the phone like this, and the woman was on her phone. Kid, I purposely, even though I could have made the left out of the parking lot, I purposely made the right and pulled up near them and just looked at him. And he turned around and went back in the store. I know the police department had been called and they were on their way, but it still was a little bit of time before they were going to get there. So those things my kids do know. They notice that it's a hand touch. It's a look. My voice goes from funny, joking, making jokes to look at me. You need to listen to exactly what I'm saying. And they know that. And that's just unfortunate that that's the world today. We've had it happen twice at our local Target. I had one guy ask me if I needed a ride. I had my two kids in the cart and I was going into the store and he goes, do you need a ride? And I go, no, but the police department that I work for, I can go ahead and call them if I need a ride. And he goes, oh, okay, have a good day. And he took off.
Right. Okay. Hello. No, sir, we don't need a ride, but we know where you can get one real quick.
Right.
That's the part. That's the part that separates you from, I'm going to say, regular moms. And you can't undo that out of you. You're at Target on a Monday. Okay. You're at Target on a Monday and you're yogis. You're right. And the point, I think, here for the most part is that the way that she carries herself, you can never have your hat to the back. We were talking about that even when she's off, and you see y'all catch how detailed she was Tuesday. Nope, it was a Monday because the girl got the details right. But it is a conditioning that I don't know if that goes away. My husband has been retired for 5 years. Okay, he still knows where X's and doors and all of those things are. I think some of that, conditioning has been on me because we had a couple incidents happen where I found myself doing, I went and got the strap. I'm like, hold on, let me remember what we need to do and these steps. And this is why I told Taylor specifically about sometimes when you get a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress, I'm not saying nobody's hearing me say Jess has that, but what I'm saying is don't focus on the labels. Do not focus on the labels. And even as a therapist who has to give these labels, right? I thank God right now I'm not seeing individual clients, but most of my work is organizational. However, when I had to do that, it's almost feeling like giving out a death sentence. Oh my gosh, what does this mean? And I say, don't worry about that. But what are the symptoms and the behaviors that get in the way? And I can tell you almost 95% of the time that most of my vets versus most of my law enforcement, most of those who have experienced a past trauma do not want to get rid of vigilance.
Yeah.
They do not want to get rid of that. We work on it when it disrupts your sleep, right? A cat's jumping in the backyard and you think it's a mass coming up against you. Like, we got to work and fine tune that, because it's
Right.
a fine tuning of possible threats. And that's what I'm hearing has happened. And your children have now become a product of the work that you do, because your job is to protect and be a responder, not only for your family, but for other people.
Yeah.
And so that's that story in itself. So there was something you said earlier, I wanted to circle back to, because I think it's important for other people to have an understanding. You said, my kids know when I've had a bad day. And I'm curious about, this is the therapist in me, but I also think you speak for other people about what that looks like, because they may think that their kids don't know. And even with your kids being as young as they are, kids know. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that after. But what does that look like for you when you come home and have had a bad day?
So usually my mood is different. Usually I come in. Lately I'm usually the pickup person from school, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it's my husband, just depending on the day. But if it's my husband's picking them up from school and I come home, I won't be as excited. I won't be. They'll run to see me and I'll give them sometimes even a longer hug than normal.
Mm.
They can feel that. They'll know I'm just a little quieter. I purposely will not talk about my day. I'm kind of in a different environment at my home compared to some of my male counterparts, because my spouse is in the job. So I can talk to him about my day. I can kind of go into, this is what happened, without feeling like he can't handle it, because he deals with it too. And vice versa. He does the same with me. They just kind of know. They'll be a little bit more huggy that day. They may actually do a little bit of the opposite and go, we're just going to plan our rooms today and we're going to color. My kids are both very notorious. When I have a bad day, they'll make me a picture. They'll come out with a picture they drew. Just things like that. And unfortunately, those things, because I am a big softie now with my kids, I'll just probably break down crying when they give me the picture and they're like, whoa, mom doesn't do this.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, but to me, it's because of what I've seen, especially when we remove kids, when we have a serious injury with a child, and I come home and see that mine are healthy and happy, and I can throw them in the car and go, let's go to Target and go get some toys. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
It just makes me just want to clutch them a little bit closer. So they feel it. They can just feel it.
And kids do. And what I'm hearing, I've heard two spectrums. I've heard that, sounds like for you, it's a greater appreciation and gratefulness, but I've also heard the other perspective of guilt, because my kids do get to have it, but I just took someone else's kids, or they
Right.
are healthy, but I just picked up a kid who's been, hurt by their parent or gunfire or whatever the case is. So I've heard that there's a gratefulness for some people, and then there's a guilt for other people. But kids can pick up and sense what we feel. And so when you say, I come and I may hug them more, I have the counter opposite for some folks. They don't want to hug. They've been numb and kind of cut off. And so I'm glad to hear that, because that's someone's experience. And then there's someone else that may be in law enforcement or first responder who can't connect with that they feel a little bit emotionless because of all the things that they have seen. And so I do think that this is important to know, that there is a pendulum, right, swing that could happen, but also what is it that I can do? And you mentioned it, my husband's in law enforcement, so he has a greater understanding about the things that I see. But what about those people whose husband is not? What
Right.
about those people who go home and there's no one home that can color them a picture? right?
Yeah,
And they come back and they don't have the same experience you're having. And I think that for me is a big deal about mental health for me, is being able to talk about, even though we're in the same experience, we're not experiencing it the same way. And not
right.
everybody is doing that. And so it's good to hear that you have someone who is in the job, but I know that's not with everybody you work with. Do you notice that
Right.
there's a difference from when someone who doesn't have the support system that you have? Have you noticed that at the work that you've done? Does it look different?
Um, fortunately, I'm trying to think in my small detective unit when I worked for the sheriff's office. Most of the wives were very lack of better of a good term, they were cool. They very much understood. um I had one detective I worked with because he worked a gang unit and then he went to detective, so him and his wife referred to the gang unit time as the dark times because he was always on call, he was always going out to work, and his wife worked full time. Um so but they were understanding. I do see where it's a lot of guys, and not trying to down anybody's job or any female's profession wherever they decide, but some of our stay-at-home moms, which within the job, it's very helpful for my male counterparts to have a wife that stays home with the kids and handles the household, handles bills, handles everything, so that when he comes home, there's nothing he's got to worry about. But at
Mm,
the same time, he'll come home and it's like, okay, I planned this, and this. And he's like, I just got home. I kind of just want to decompress for
yeah,
15, 20 minutes. And as, I mean, I think being, especially stay at home mom is very social. They have a network of other families that they connect with, and they want to go out and hang out with those people because, again, I tried the stay at home mom thing for a very short time. It didn't work out for me. Um,
right. Yes.
I love my kiddos, but I just knew that there was a calling for me, to stay in my line of work,
Yeah.
and but a lot of times they're home with the kids all day long, so they want to go have some adult interaction. And some of those male counterparts I worked with, I'd have to explain that to them. Well, you need to understand, she needs an outlet too. So, you know, don't be mad if she wants to plan something, but you need to sit down and talk to her and just explain that, hey, can we plan on my days that I work? We just don't do anything on those days, but the days I'm off, hey, let's free game,
Yeah.
plan whatever you want. Um, but it was the decompression time they weren't seeing, sometimes with the not understanding. And then unfortunately, that does lead to marital problems. Um, and also in the job, I did notice another thing would be, the expectation of pay. um,
Mm-hmm.
we know what we make. We're not millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
We do the job. We don't do the job for the money. We do the job because this is what we felt our calling was. Kind of like a teacher, a nurse. It's a calling, and a lot of times you're not getting the pay, and the only way you can make the good pay is if you work a ton of overtime.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of guys working overtime, and their spouse would be at home going, "Well, what about me?
Yeah.
What about the kid?" And then you would see marital problems start happening.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, well, if you want the nice car or you want the nice house, this is what I have to do. And it was the lack of understanding. So,
Yeah. That's hard. And we touched on it a little bit in our podcast we did, about how it is the nature of the job that it's the nature of the job, and not being able to balance it out is the issue, right?
right.
Because the word that sticks out to me is decompress. And believe it or not, even as stay-at-home moms, and I, like you, I briefly did love my babies, but I needed that adult interaction and still to do the
Hmm.
things that I've been called to do. But they need decompression too. They
Yeah.
need an outlet too. And it goes back to mental health. It goes back to skill. See, we're asking people to provide a skill that they have not been trained or taught. And children don't come with coping skills. There's something that we got to train and teach them. Your kids coloring, knowing to go to their room to color is a trained coping skill. Whether you called it that or not, it's something that they can do to relax themselves or to disassociate for the moment and focus on the one thing. And not all couples have that. Law enforcement, I know at one period, I didn't look up new research, but high divorce rate, same as military, higher divorce rate. Some of my vets, I loved it, but they are on their second, third, fourth marriages. And not because maybe they weren't two good people, they just didn't have the coping strategies to adhere to such a profession that requires so much of them. And so, dual military, dual law enforcement, for some of them, they need to both be in that profession because it wouldn't have worked otherwise. Some of my dual married veteran couples, he's on detachment, you're on deployment, he's working knocks, you're working days. It actually works for them to not be around each other so much. It's when both retire and they both have to look at each other and decide, what do we do now, that the real
Yeah.
kind of like coping happens. And so it's interesting, at the beginning of your story, you weren't married, you didn't have any children. So it was like I could be immersed in this thing the way I needed to. And it wasn't until I got a husband and had these little babies that I was able to identify differently. And I would imagine that's what makes it work for your marriage, is being
Yeah,
able to understanding.
yeah, and we do understand each other. And funny enough, I mean, we actually do have a lot in common. Our families are extremely similar,
Mm,
minus the affectionate things, but like how he was raised and how I was raised was extremely similar. He's not an only child; he's got siblings, but just the dynamics. Like we didn't grow up rich. Our parents really busted their butt for everything they had. My dad is a very hardworking man. I think that's where I get my work ethic from. But he also, I told him all the time, he's always missed his calling. He should have been a cop. He could leave and come home and tell you, oh, someone's been here. How do you know that? Well, there's a tire track in my rocks right here, and that's not from my track. That's from someone else's track.
right.
And so we both are very similar in our personalities and our family upbringing. So I think that helped us, especially when we had children, on being on the same page with a lot of things. Um, so we do have a lot in common. It's not just a job, but it just happened to be how we met. We had a mutual friend that thought, oh, you guys would be great together. Um, Unfortunately, he was right.
Yeah,
I can't ever tell him he's right, but he was right.
right.
And when I got pregnant with a daughter, he suggested her name would be his name, and I said no. And he said, "Why don't you put an Ina at the end of it?" I'm like, "No, it's not going to work. I'm not going to
Yeah,
name my daughter this name. I'm
yeah,
sorry."
yeah. With the
So,
email,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's sweet. Yeah, and so I want to kind of shift a little bit as we're kind of wrapping up. I want to say, because we are talking about, even in this profession, and even though there's some differences between male and females in the field, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, we don't get to take the nurturing out of moms, no matter how conditioned they are in the field. They come home and they're still mamas, no matter how we shape it, even if it looks different in different households. I think the biggest part I want to, and I heard you start saying it, you worked out. When we talk about mental health, it's when we talk about mental, I didn't want to get into this LinkedIn battle about this individual who says she doesn't like the term mental health. I think, like anything else, it has been distorted and perverted. It truly is the health of the mind. That's all it is. But like some terms, we can take it in society and make it a negative thing. So I still
Right.
do love the name mental health. I would talk about spiritual health, physical health. It is distinguishing truly the part of your physical anatomy that needs the health, right? We can have good health or bad health. We can have good mental health or bad mental health. And in this job, we know that if you do not have any coping strategies, you won't last very long, either due to things such as suicide, things such as making a mistake that could be very detrimental to your health, or the constant stress that you take on that actually gets normalized after a while. And actually, you look forward to it. I think Taylor's one said, I was, like, bring it on. That's not good for the heart after consistently is stressful, even if you are able to utilize it in a way. So tell me what your mental health practices are / coping skills, why it allows you to continue to do the work that you do 15 years later with hopes to retire whenever that is. Tell us what works for you.
So people think I'm crazy, but I am a very early riser only because I have to be able to balance, and I'm nothing against my male counterparts, but I have to be able to balance the family life with the kids and what their activities are, and then what I would like to do to keep myself sane. Um, I get up at 4 a.m. and I work out.
Mhm.
I'll do weights, I run, I cycle. Sometimes I do yoga. Yoga actually has become a huge part of my workout routines now. I'm adding it, incorporating it a little bit more. I went from only maybe 1 day a week to now 2 or 3 days a week because it feels nice. It relaxes me. So that's usually my very first thing in the morning. The other thing I did start doing only a couple years ago, and I regret, ladies, I super regret not doing this sooner. Um, Spa days. Oh my God. A nice facial. I just got micro needles, so I have zero makeup on right now because my skin's all
And
peeling.
you see her,
But
y'all. Her skin got it going on. I'm over there like, girl,
it's
yes.
all a bunch of lotions right now because they're like, keep it moisturized. The cool thing about my spa that I go to is the owner has this really cute dog she brings in. So, like the other day, I took a picture and put it on my Facebook. The dog's sitting on my lap, and I'm like, if your spa does not have a dog that can come sit on your lap, you're doing it wrong.
Right, right.
Um, so I very much enjoy my spa days, facials, things like that. You have to. Even I'll take my daughter and we'll go get pedicures. It's just nice to do something different, and to feel like a girl. In this profession, it's very difficult to feel like a girl sometimes. So it's very nice when you get to. The other thing I love to do, I've learned to do now, take days off.
Mhm,
Who cares? The world can the office can run without you for a few days.
mhm.
I took this whole week off to be with my kids, to hang out. We've been running around like crazy. I feel like it hasn't been a vacation, but that's okay. Um, but we are big Disney freaks in our house. Um, I have two Scentsy warmers behind me. One's Haunted Man. What this one's the Nightmare Before Christmas. This one's Haunted Mansion. We're huge Disney freaks. We go as much as we can. I mean, financially, it's expensive, but that's what overtime's for, and saving money. But we love to go, and it's to the point now. My 6-year old, if he got lost in Disneyland, I think if I told him meet me at Big Thunder, he'll know exactly where to go and meet me.
Right.
So we love going on trips, but Disney's a kind of our thing. As some people will tell me, "Oh, I don't know how you do that. It's so busy." I don't care, even especially now after 2020. I don't care about the crowds anymore. It does not. I love seeing all the people, and I know there's crying babies and children throwing tantrums. Mine might be included, but the
Mhm,
fact of the matter is, for the majority, you see all these really happy people. Seeing kids like seeing Disney for the first time, it's you see their button. It says my first time at Disney, and it's the
mhm,
coolest thing ever to watch their reaction to the
mhm.
parades, and to it lights me up. The other cool thing with the Disney, we're going in April. We're going to do a bucket list, and we are staying at the big Grand California Hotel.
Okay.
And my in-laws are coming, and they have not been since my husband was probably 18, 19 years
Oh
old.
wow. Oh wow.
So I'm super excited for them. It's like watching my kids for the first time, watching them for their face the first time
Yes.
seeing Disney.
That's
So
beautiful.
um, it's that's just I like trips, and I always invite family. Like you guys are always welcome to come. Like we make it work. So my in-laws finally took us up on the offer. My mother-in-law is like, we kind of invited ourselves. I'm like, I was gonna invite you anyways. Like
Right, right.
it doesn't bug me.
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of our outlet. My husband unfortunately had to start tagging along, but now he'll try to say he doesn't.
Right.
He thoroughly enjoys it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So what I'm hearing from you, schedule yourself in your day. 4 a.m. is, not everybody's down with that. I'm good with it because I had to do it for so long if I wanted that time to myself. And
Right.
I'm going, I don't get to be the fit therapist without talking about the benefits of exercise on the mind and the body and the spirit. It is all interconnected. We are not one piece or another. We are whole people. So we have to take care of the whole being. And if you are not doing something for yourself every day, then you're missing opportunities to not only connect with the outside world, with yourself starting out that way. And so exercise, it is the one chemical medication you don't have to titrate up or down, right? We get psychotropic medications. You got to figure out which dosing is right, not exercise. It releases that feel good hormone. If you even do 15 minutes, if you do 5 minutes intense working out, 15 minutes of moderate, and 30 minutes of slow, you are doing your body and your mind a favor, even after the exercise is done. So highly recommended. I'm glad that's one of your coping strategies. That's why she could be 5'2" and take down a 6'3" man. Y'all better be careful on this little face. Don't let it fool you. I hear adding in some spa days. You know, yoga is not something that I practice necessarily, but there is amazing research and scientific benefits of yoga. But I do encourage you to sit still with yourself, to be mindful of your body, of your breath, focus on your breathing. And what I'm also hearing, despite being in this big Disneyland, Disney World adventure, that she's able to be present. She's able to be mindful. When you can look at kids and see first time buttons, when you're able to see the smiles of children, when you're able to kind of bleed out all of the tantrums and the crying and the fussing and the rest of the world, and see your family, to make memories. I call that mindfulness practice. She is being aware of her present moment, and she's not taking it for granted. She's making memories with her family. I 100% sign off on everything that she is saying from a mental health practitioner standpoint. And so if you are a first responder, if you are just a woman who is working or not working, I would tell you to take one thing that she said and try to apply it to your life. One thing, whether it's to just exercise. Maybe it's not at 4 a.m. You did not hear me say that, especially if you didn't get in bed till midnight. This is not that. Sleep is huge and it is important. Whether it's trying yoga, even 1 day a week, even if it's trying a facial for the first time and calendar in that one time a month, whether it's taking your daughter and painting her nails because you can't afford to do it, do something for yourself. And so I just want to thank Jess for coming on here. I thank her for sharing a piece of herself. She did absolutely amazing. I know she was a little bit nervous, but she did beautiful because it's her story to tell. I don't get to write it. I don't get to say what's right or what's wrong, but I just want to thank her for her service, her husband for his service. And I want to thank her family for allowing us to have them as protectors of our community. And if you ever want to join Fit Chat, Chit Chat, you got a story you want to tell, you want something you want to share with the community and the world, I know we're meeting at a different time and it may not get to everybody in the moment, but we will be sharing this, and please share it on your platforms if you have one. If you want to be on, email me at fitchatchitchat@gmail.com. Find me on social media at The Fit Therapist. And I want to give Jess one last opportunity to share, even if it's not with a first responder, but just someone who may be watching this in a recording. What are some last parting words you would like to share, Jess?
Ooh. You know, I kind of said it when it came to the mental health and time off. Don't think that when you go to work, especially first responders, we have this feeling that if I'm not there, this is not going to get done. If I'm not there, then I'm not protecting anything. You get that feeling, but you need to remember if you're not taking the time for yourself, you're not going to be good to anybody, whether it's that stranger in that traffic accident that needs you to help them, the little child that got lost from their family, that doesn't know where they're at, and you found them in the middle of the road and you're trying to figure out where they're living. You're not going to be any good to them if you don't take time for yourself. Taking days off and vacation is needed, and saying no to overtime, saying I cannot do that, because you don't have to give an excuse. Just say, hey, I can't do that. If you need me, you have to order me in, and most of the time that doesn't happen. But take the time for yourself, because the world, they will go on without you. They'll figure out a way. But if you just are having a day, or you realize I've worked too many days and I need to take some time off, please do it. Your family will thank you. You will be a better person at home. You'll be a better person at work if you give yourself some breaks. And we're all human, so it's okay to say, hey, today's just not my day. I just need to stay home today. I just need to read a book. It's okay to do that. Don't ever feel like you can't do that people are going to look at you weak or something different than what you really are. Everybody is human. Everyone needs a break.
That's beautiful. Y'all heard her. Mental health days are your friend. Mental health days are your friend. There's no, if even if you feel guilty taking it, I'd rather you take the day and work through the guilt versus staying and feeling guilty about wanting to take the break but not doing it. And so thank you for that reminder. That was beautiful. Absolutely. As we go into this holiday season, this is the last Fit Chat of the year, is take care of your mental health. This is a difficult time for many people. They may have had a loss. They may just be dealing with the overwhelm of trying to make desires happen. Please don't do that. Please do not go broke this holiday season. If you lost someone this year, pay homage by being able to do something, release balloons, play their favorite song, make their favorite dessert, whatever it is. Just take your time. Take time for yourself. Thank you, Jess, for being here. God bless
Thank you.
you all. God keep you, and goodbye.
Bye.
Happy holidays.